The perimeter of a rectangle is 40 centimeters. So I'm going to actually draw a picture to help me with this word problem. Whenever I see rectangle problem, I always draw a picture. Perimeter is 40 centimeters. So the distance all the way around is 40 centimeters. Here's the length and here's the width. And the second part says if the length is doubled and the width is halved, we have a different perimeter. So we have a much longer, skinnier rectangle with a double length and a half width. And the distance around this triangle, the perimeter, is increased by 16. It's not 16, it's now more perimeter because a longer, skinnier plot of land is going to take more fencing. So increased by 16 means that the distance around is 56. So with word problems, we should technically define W and L, which is the original length. That is the blue one, not the red one. And this is your original width. So what we can do now is we can set up two equations, one for the blue and one for the red. And if we have two equations and two variables, we have a system, and we can solve that. So a perimeter is two lengths and two widths. That'll be 40. And if we take two of these and two of those, you're actually going to get 4 lengths and 1 width, and that'll equal 56. So there are many ways you can solve this system, looking for L and W. Probably the easiest one is to do it by elimination. So we can multiply, we can see that this is actually an easy multiple of this. And also this is an easy multiple of this. So either way, we could multiply either equation by 2 and it would work. I'm just going to arbitrarily choose to do this one. I'm also going to choose to make it negative just because I like it when I get one positive term and one negative term, because then I can add them together instead of subtracting. I don't like subtracting. I make mistakes. Okay, so then these cancel out. We're going to get with negative 3w, and 56 minus 80 is negative 24, which means that w equals 8. And then we can go back and sub it back into either of these equations. I guess I'll sub it into this one since w is all by itself. So 4 lengths plus 8 is equal to 56. And we can minus 8 from both sides. So if we take 56 minus 8, we're going to get 48. And we can divide that by 4 to get 12. So then our final answer, if we were to state this properly, would say that the original width is equal to 8 centimeters and the length is equal to 12 centimeters. We give units if they gave us units. In this example, they have told us the cost of 5 drinks and 6 meals, and then the cost of 2 drinks and 4 meals, and I'm looking for the cost of 1 drink and 1 meal. So when we set up our variables, we usually want to let them be the thing we're looking for. So we're going to let D is equal to the cost of 1 drink, and M is going to be the cost of 1 meal. So in the first example, we can say that 5 drinks and 6 meals is $49.50. And in the second example, there's 2 drinks and 4 meals for $31. So again, you can solve this, but there's no easy way to do this by elimination because this is not an easy multiple of that. That's not an easy multiple of that. You could just multiply this by 5 and this by 2, and you would be good to go, which is fine. You can do that. You could do it by substitution, but that would also look kind of bad because then you would be substituting or probably isolating for D, and there would be fractions, and it would be ugly. So if they don't ask you to do it algebraically, may I suggest that you might be able to do this graphically and just do a little bit of cheating. So you could change this to 5x plus 6y is equal to 49.50, and 2x plus 4y is equal to 31. Or you could put y in for D. Doesn't really matter. You're going to get the same answer, but I'm going to go into Desmos and solve it in there. So here I am in Desmos, and I have typed my equations in with x and y instead of D and M. And I can see that the graphs have shown up, but I can't see the intersection point. So I'm just going to drag until I can see it. And then I can click on the intersection. It might be kind of nice. 1.5 and 7, exactly. That's pretty darn good. So x is 1.5 and y is 7. But if I go back to my original example here, then if this is 1.5, so d is 1.5, and then m is 7. So then a drink costs $1.50, and a meal costs $7. In this next example, we have to figure out the number of nickels and dimes. So a piggy bank has $9.25, and there's a total of 103 coins in nickels and dimes. How much of each coin does it contain? So that means that we're going to let n equal not the cost of a nickel, but the number of nickels, and d equal the number of dimes. Okay, so the easier part to figure out is if there's a total of 103 coins, then we know that the number of n plus d has to be 103. The harder part is how to figure out the other equation. So every system needs two equations and two variables to be solvable. We cannot just solve this. There's no way. So we need to use the other clue. We need to be able to express how to create $9.25. Well, if you have 5 cents is a nickel times the number of nickels, that will be how much money you have in nickels. So if you have 1 nickel, it'll be 5 cents. And if you have 2 nickels, it'll be 10 cents, for example. So whatever the n multiplier is how many nickels you have. But we just don't know what that is. And then we're going to add the cost of a dime. Same sort of deal. 10 cents times however many you have. And if you add that all together, you're going to get $9.25. So now we have our two equations and our two variables, and we've used all the clues that they've given us to write that. In the solving process, most of the students in class said that they wanted to do this by elimination. So I'm going to multiply this by 0.05 to make these two match up. And my hack is I always like to use negative so that it's the opposite. So negative 0.05n minus 0.05d is equal to negative 5.15. And then now these cancel out exactly, and we have to subtract the rest, or add the rest rather. D is equal to 925 minus 515, and we're going to have 4.1. So then we divide both sides by 0.05, and you're going to have D is 82. So there were 82 dimes. And then the easiest way to figure out the number of nickels is to use this equation over here, because you just have to add up to 103. So the number of nickels is equal to 103 minus 82. And we have 21 nickels. So then our final answer would be 21 nickels and 82 dimes. Here's another rectangle problem. So we have a rectangle with a perimeter of 18 meters, and we only have one rectangle this time. So all the way around is 18 meters. And the width is 3 meters less than the length. Now, if this was early Math 10 or Math 15, you would probably set this up by only having one variable. So here's how you normally would have done it. If the width is 3 meters less than the length, then maybe you would call this x, and you would call this x minus 3. And then you would set this up by saying that 2 of these plus 2 of those is going to be 18. Bam, I'm done. I can solve an equation in one variable. I'm just going to show you how to solve it technically with a system that is two variables, just so you can see the difference. If you want to do it this way, that's totally fine. But there might be some questions out there that insist that you can solve it by a system, and then it's multiple choice, and they ask you to select which system. So I just need you to know that it is possible to do it another way. So instead of doing it this way, I'm going to call this the length and this the width. So we know that 2L's plus 2W's is equal to 18. That's our first clue. But the width being 3 meters less than the length, we have to set up another equation that says that the width is means equals, 3 meters less than the length. So the length minus 3. So see how now we have a system with two equations and two variables. This is a little bit more complicated. It might seem like I'm overcomplicating things, but again, I just need you to know that it's possible. So the easiest way to solve this, I believe, is by substitution. Since W is already isolated, I can simply take this expression and plug it in here. So 2L plus 2L minus 3 is equal to 18. And ironically, this is the same equation you would have gotten if you had just done it the grade 9 way. So 4L equals 18 plus 6. So we're looking at 24. So L is 6, which means that W is L minus 3. So 6 minus 3 is 3. The cost of 2 popcorn and 4 chips is $20. Cost of 3 popcorn and 5 chips is $28. What's the cost of each item? Well, we usually set this up. We're going to have 2 popcorn, 4 chips is $20. And then 3 popcorn and 5 chips is $28. So there's your system. I'm not going to solve it to the end, but what I will say is that probably the easiest way to solve this algebraically is by elimination. If I was not told to solve it algebraically, then I would probably do it in a graphing calculator like Desmos. But if you wanted to do this by elimination, unfortunately, there's no easy way to multiply this to look like this or this to look like this. So you'd either have to go through and multiply this by 3 and this one by 2, or you could go like the 5 and 4 route. Either way, it just kind of takes a long time. This is the last example we did in class, which is another piggy bank example. So we have quarters and dimes. So Q is not the value of the quarter, but the number of quarters. That's what we're interested in. And then D is the number of dimes. So piggy bank contains 31 coins. So the two values together is going to be 31. And the total amount of money is 550. So you just have to know that you got to multiply the value of a quarter times the number of quarters, value of a dime times the number of dimes, and 550. So then you can solve that. And again, I'm not going to solve this. You could do it by substitution if you wanted to. You could isolate for Q minus D. Sorry. And then you can put that in for Q here. And then the rest of it would remain the same. And you have an equation now in one variable. And you could solve this. My personal opinion is I think that elimination is a little bit easier. And you saw me do an elimination example a couple questions back where you would just multiply this by 0.25 or 0.1 to get the terms to match up.